What's up, Andy
What's
Rose? How you doing, brother?
good, man? Good. How was your weekend?
It was phenomenal. I actually got to relax a little bit, which I know we were talking pre video. That's a rare thing these days. I
Yeah.
mean, geez, so many things going on. There's just with real estate is starting. The market's starting to turn a little bit. Have you noticed it too?
Yeah, there's definitely a softening, and networking nationally, keeping an eye on all of that stuff because usually eventually hits your own market. But definitely seeing how that's happening right now across the nation. Definitely seeing it here. My last few listings that I've dealt with, fewer showings, fewer offers, still great offers above list price offers. No appraisal issues so far on any of them. I actually had my one is closing today. They waived the appraisal, so I got another one closing this week, and they didn't. We actually had appraised for higher than the sales price, which I was surprised about. But and that one was in FHA, which you don't see a lot of FHAs right now. So
It's
yeah,
funny.
definitely a softening.
You use the A word that we're going to talk about today, the appraisal.
What did you
Um,
call me?
you appraiser.
No, I mean
No.
we need appraisers, right? There's changes coming along at the federal level where they're talking about doing uh, more formalizing the desktop appraisals. So we're going to start seeing that. There's even um, I think it's in Congress. A congressman from Alaska is pushing for desktop appraisals for the VA,
Yeah,
which
good and
you're
bad. Good. It's good and bad.
good and bad. You get a speedy appraisal. Sometimes you may not get it right, but again, with the VA appraisal, you have two opportunities to fight that.
Yeah, and we're going to go over that today. I mean, one of the biggest things that the most common objection that you and I hear, as an agent, such as yourself and me as a lender, we hear the biggest objection to the VA loan, and that's what the VA appraiser is going to come in and nitpick everything in this house, or the value's going to come in low, or I mean, what other ones are there that
well, no, they think that the VA has their own appraisers, like they work for the VA, and that's not true. These are regular appraisers. They're trained like any other appraiser. They just happen to put in their application with the VA to do VA appraisals, and they're certified. They are the only ones that can do the VA appraisals, but they're trained just like any other appraiser, and they typically have quite a bit of experience and training outside of that to make sure that they are good appraisers. It's not Joe Schmuckatelli just got his appraisal license and was just released out of their mentorship and everything, and I want to go get my VA certificate to do appraisals. And a lot of times those guys don't get in because they just don't have the experience.
Did PFC Schmuckatelli just make an appearance on our
Schmuckatelli, man?
So, I mean, the key part or the key takeaway from what you're talking about is it's a disinterested third party that's providing the value, their opinion of value on the property. They're not hired, they're not employees of the VA.
No,
right? They're these same appraisers that you see every single day, if for a conventional or FHA or USDA appraisal. The only difference is, from my understanding of it, a VA approved appraiser has gained enough experience or appraisal hours to warrant being on the VA approved list.
Right.
So these are experienced appraisers. So, kind of the underlying theme of all of our videos is A, who you work with matters, but B, identifying and making mistakes, but correcting those mistakes with future behaviors. And the VA has done that. They've identified the process, the appraisal process back in the early 90s. They found the shortfalls and the pitfalls, and they've corrected that, and they've done everything in their power to overcome it. But we as an industry are not helping out matters when we're still holding them accountable for the stuff that happened in the late 90s.
Right.
So we're going to take this one on head on. Okay.
Yeah.
We will talk through what the VA requires of the property and the VA appraisal process, and we'll provide some stats and data, and we will go from there. So one of the biggest things that I do as a VA home loan specialist is I help empower my buyer's agents with the intel to help get ahead of these necessary VA items that everybody always talks about. I mean, it's not anything outlandish, but it's not anything crazy. I mean, it's the 3 S's to the property, right?
Right.
House must be sanitary, so hence the pest inspection. I mean,
Yeah.
who in the hell wants to buy a house that was lived in by a herd of cats and smells like nothing but cat urine? That is a pungent scent.
That's horrible. Well, I take allergy medicine.
Yeah. Or structurally sound. I mean, who's going to want to buy a house that the foundation is crumbling, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is just common sense stuff. And what's the last one?
Secure.
Boom.
Secure.
So what does that mean? No broken windows, right?
Yeah. Well, windows that lock, windows that aren't broken, doors that latch. I've had that come up. It was a rehab, and the back door didn't latch very well, and it had to be fixed. So yeah, those are things that they're concerned about. Safe, which is the structural, making sure the house is sound. They're not engineers, so they're not going to always find that foundational issue. But if it's something that's quite obvious, then they're definitely going to throw a condition on the appraisal to get that either checked out and approved by an engineer, or actually have it repaired, depending on what the situation is and what the engineer says.
Yeah. So as a buyer's agent, it's on them to walk through with the critical eyes. I mean, they're the boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Right. So they're doing their best to protect their client, and that's what every agent should strive for, and every lender should be going after. So what tips do you have for a buyer's agent going through a property with a veteran?
I would say, to be honest with you, not to nitpick, and that's what the home inspector is there for, is to nitpick. They're supposed to find stuff. They're going to find stuff. But some of those really small things, I've seen houses get hit for chip paint. And some of that stuff, this is where we get into, is that a cosmetic thing? Absolutely, it's a cosmetic thing. But how bad is the chipping? Is it just on one side where the sun hits it too much and they've just got to touch up a part of it? Or is it a repair? Is it a cosmetic repair that if it does come up on the VA appraisal inspection, the buyer can waive that repair? And now they're going to have to work with the loan officer and the underwriter and say, hey, look, this is not a huge concern. Why do we have to take care of this? And then allow it to be waived. That's where the underwriter works with the appraiser and said, hey, we're going to waive this repair. We're allowed to. Or if it is something that has to be done, the buyer can pay for it. The veteran buyer can pay for those repairs prior to closing. And depending on the lender, they can do it in escrow as well. So they can do it after the closing typically within 60 days, which is the time period for the lender to send over the loan to the VA for guarantee.
Yeah. So what you're talking about, there's many things that can happen on a transaction. So we're not going to sit here and just hypothetical and what if you guys to death. But the main thing is whatever's on the appraisal report needs to be repaired, but you want to get ahead of what the appraiser may or may not call out. So the easiest way to do that is review all the seller disclosures. Like one time it's January. Okay. It's January in Michigan. It's a little cold. On the seller's disclosure, there was listed that the AC unit does not run. That was it. Right. Yeah. So, this was a learning moment for me because I didn't know that the AC not running was going to be a red flag on the appraisal report, because according to the NPRs, a home does not necessarily need air conditioning to meet the basic requirement. Right. However, If there is AC installed, it must be operational. Boom, crap.
Right.
That's on me, right? So I now know to read these seller disclosures, because in January, how in the world can you get anybody to test an AC unit? You can't. I mean, you cannot get it kick on. And when are you going to be able to do that? In Michigan, that's not an easy answer. I mean, Jesus, it was just the last weekend of May before I was outside wearing shorts,
right,
sitting at the pool, you know. So that's the type of spring we've had. It's been freezing cold. So how in the world can we get around that? This is where you can go to the VA and ask for a waiver.
Right.
So the veteran is aware that there is an operational piece, right? But it does not pose a safety concern or problem for him and his family to occupy the house.
Right.
Okay, so that's where MPR waiver is warranted. How about this one? This was last year. We had right in the height of COVID contractors, just craziness. We had a drain field for a well, was completely flooded and damaged. The well was damaged, so there was there was access to water. It just wasn't potable water. Okay.
Right.
We had a company that came out and said, hey, we cannot get out here for at least 2.5 months.
Wow.
Well, crap. We need to close within the next 21 days. What the hell are we going to do? Okay. This is where you can do an escrow holdback for repairs. Okay. Right. So this does not delay the closing. It maintains that same timeline or the closing date that's on the sales contract. So every lender is a little bit different. We hold 1.5 times the amount that's quoted on the invoice or work order for the company. All right. And it's held in escrow or at title or with your attorneys, if you're in that kind of state, until the work is completed. This allows a veteran and their family to move into the house as anticipated. And that domino needs to fall for the home seller to purchase their next home. So all these dominoes are all in place for every transaction. It's pretty phenomenal how one little thing affects everything. It's like the butterfly effect, you know, like that one little thing. Like right now, we have one that's clear to close, been clear to close for almost 2 weeks now, and we're still waiting on the conventional appraisal to come back. Now, if the shoe was on the other foot, you know, we're waiting on the VA appraisal. I mean, do you think that people would give the VA appraisal process the benefit of the doubt? Nope, absolutely not.
Oh, no. But hey, they do have guidelines that state that the appraisals have to be done in a certain time period. You know, I think in most markets, it's 10 business days, 7 to 10 business days, which is more than plenty of time. Now, with VA appraisers, there's just not as many of them. That's part of the problem, and that's why that's why there's fee schedules for the appraisals now. They went up last year. That's why there are certain timelines for most markets on those, because in some cases there's a limited number. Like if you go up to more remote areas like Montana, the Dakotas, and all that stuff, you might
Michigan.
You might only have 1 or 2 for the entire area.
Yeah, you know? it becomes very difficult. I mean, that's why, I mean, if you're watching this and you know of an appraiser that should be on the VA panel, let us know. We're happy to help with the paperwork and get them on the VA approved panel, because the more there are, the quicker they're going to be. But I can honestly tell you that, you know, specializing in doing 98% of my business in the VA world, whenever there's a VA appraisal assigned to a VA approved appraiser, I already know the trends and things that these appraisers do, because that's what I analyze trends and patterns. And I know that if it's assigned to this person, they're going to do X, Y, and Z. So I need to proactively get ahead of it. And because of that, we have very little issues with the turn times of the appraisals around here. Right. Now, we just had one that we closed last month. That was in the northern part of the Upper Peninsula. So the UP, right? UP. Where there might be three VA approved appraisers to cover thousands of miles. I mean, the UP is massive and huge. So this one did take a little bit because they just didn't have the time. And you have to kind of be understanding about that. You can't be I need it now. I need it now. Because I mean,
Right.
what happens, if the shoe's on the other foot and somebody calls me and they're demanding me to drop everything to help, it's like, I don't do well with people bossing me around.
Right. Right. I'm
So,
the same way.
so I mean, that's what the VA requires for minimum property requirements. I mean, the VA protects the veteran from themselves, and they also protect the veteran from predatory people. I mean,
Right.
let's face facts. If we're going to hold the VA accountable for the stuff that happened in the early 2000s, I'm going to hold the agents and lenders accountable too.
Exactly.
Right.
Especially right now, because it's the agents and lenders that should know more about this, because this is what we do day in and day out, right? Your basic veteran buyer isn't going to know everything, as much as we try to educate them, and we wish that they would, and that's what we're working towards. It's the professionals that they hire to do the loan and to help them find a house that should know this stuff, and have it readily available to explain to other parties, like the listing agents, if you're a buyer agent, and to the veteran and everything. So I think that's really the key with all this is education. Who you work with matters, especially when it comes to the VA home loans. That's the biggest thing. Usually one of my first questions to an agent that I talk to that's having issues with the VA home loan, my question is, well, who's your lender? How good are they with VAs? How many do they do a year? How many have they done in the last few years? Because if it's not many, they probably shouldn't be doing them, and they should be referring them out to somebody who does them more often. So that way the veteran, the buyer, the client is better taken care of overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. So let's talk over the VA appraisal process. I think the appraisal process in itself is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, so the latest stats from the VA from 2021 are showing that 91% of all VA appraisals last year came in at or above value.
Right.
91%.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's huge.
That is massively huge. So what happens in the off chance, or the 9% chance that it comes in low? There's two ways in which you can get your value back. Right. The first one is Tidewater. Right. Well, 48 hours for lender agents to provide comparable sale homes to the appraiser to justify the purchase price.
Right.
Now, this
is what the appraiser calls. The appraiser calls for Tidewater because they're not seeing the values in the comps to match the sales price. And they're asking for our opinion and our knowledge, and what we used as buyer agents and listing agents, what we use to get to that number. Now, in this market where we're seeing everybody go over the asking price, things were happened very quickly. So sometimes you did have a lapse in the market where things are going up quickly. It's not, the appraisals are not able to keep up with that numbers wise. But I think last year we were definitely able to get that through. But the Tidewater is what, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but Tidewater is what the appraiser calls. And you have 48 hours to return all of your information to the lender, and then they feed it back through the appraisal management company to the appraiser and everything, or in this case, the VA, to get over to the appraiser so that they can review what we're looking at. Because as much as they're in the market, so are we. And we are two different entities. We look at things differently. So sometimes we can give them something that they may have missed.
Correct. And what I think I'm going to ask you, how do we handle the appraisal gap? That, this beautiful appraisal gap guarantee that's been floating out there, and the fact that, hey, the VA doesn't allow that, does it?
No, they do. They absolutely allow for the veteran buyer to pay over the asking price, over the appraisal amount. Now, what the VA will consider that is a down payment, right? You've got to cover that gap. They'll only guarantee the loan up to the appraisal amount. Well, if it's $100,000 and they've gone to 125, do they have the 25,000 to cover the difference? If they do, that becomes a down payment. They've got to show proof of funds that they have that money there. So that does allow it. Now, you will get pushback from listing agents about the amendatory clause or the escape clause that allows a veteran, and this is very similar to FHA, but allows a veteran to back out at any time and get their earnest money back, because there's no penalty for backing out because it did not appraise. However, that's not really the intent, especially in this market. The intent of what the VA wants. The VA wants the buyer to be able to close on the home. It's to the benefit of the veteran. So in a lot of those cases, we try to get around that amendatory clause. It's something that has to be there. But if the funds are there, they have contracted and stated in a contract that they were willing to pay over the appraisal amount up to a certain amount. And if they have the funds to do so, then they should do so, and they should be held accountable to do so.
Correct.
So that's where the fine line is when it comes to that stuff.
And I know, like in my area, the sales contract goes out first, and then the amendatory clause comes after. So the amendatory clause is an addendum. An addendum trumps the original contract. It's
right.
A modification of it, right? So there's a lot of confusion on whether or not the veteran is held liable to what's on the sales contract, or if the escape clause trumps that. And my understanding of it is the VA stance is, hey, at the time of the offer was turned in, it was the veteran's intent to pay the appraisal gap. So therefore, they're holding the veteran accountable to what's on the sales contract.
Right.
The escape clause is kind of a moot point right?
Yes. Now,
I've
had some pretty terse discussion with agents on that.
It's a tricky one, man. That's why
it is very tricky, because if you go to court over something like this, the court is likely to, there's a good chance that they're going to agree with the amendatory clause, right? But part of the problem too is that, at least in your state, and it's very similar in other states, where there is an addendum, and you don't always get it with the contract. It's done after everybody has agreed to the numbers, right? In Georgia, we have the loan exhibit. So we have different loan types, the main three. So we have a conventional, an FHA, and a VA loan exhibit. And in that loan exhibit is the full amendatory clause. And it is explained what that is. And up until this market in the last couple of years, did anybody ever really pay attention to that? Right. But now that we're talking about low, the accusation or the misinformation about low appraisals, we get that pushed on the veterans a lot now. But when you can stipulate around some of that stuff for the intent of purchasing, and it's to the veteran's benefit, that's what the VA wants. That's what they prefer. That's what that's what the VA home loan is there for. So I really think that you have to know about it. You have to advise on it. But other than that, for the most part, I would not worry about the amendatory clause. I've honestly rarely had to deal with it.
No. I'm glad you brought up your exhibits there in Georgia. I believe it was in Georgia. You and I had a conversation about it because I have a problem with the way our purchase agreements are, and you showed me a way around it. And you guys do it right, man. I mean, that's awesome. And I love to see that. So let's move on to Tidewater. We submitted the comps. At the end of 48 hours, Tidewater is over, and you have a value, a notification of value, NOV.
Right.
Now, let's say the purchase price is $300,000. After Tidewater, we have an established value or notification of value of $280,000. You, as a buyer's agent, are you convinced that the home is $280,000? No, you think it's still $300,000.
Right.
Well, what's our next course of action? Our next course of action is called a reconsideration of value, ROV, and this is done with a SAR, a staff appraisal reviewer at the lender's office and the VA.
Yeah,
Now,
not every lender has a SAR. A lot of the bigger ones do, but not every lender has a SAR.
correct. A couple things to the ROV. I mean, very few people submit for the ROV because they don't know it, number one.
Right.
But number two, the VA has reported a 79% approval rate, right? So let's go back. So 91% of all appraisals came in at value last year.
Right.
Okay. So of those 9% that were not at value, they went to Tidewater. If they still didn't get their value back, you could submit it to the ROV level.
Right.
ROV is showing a 79% approval rate with a
Right.
7.5% increase to value or $28,000.
Right.
That
I mean, there's your difference, right? You're at 280. There's your difference. You made 300 right there.
like,
Right?
oh my God, how I don't understand how this still gets a bad reputation.
Because people just don't, like you said, they don't know that you can do the ROV. You know, they may have heard of Tidewater, dealt with it one time, wasn't a big deal. They were only a few thousand short. But in this market where you've got people going 10, $25,000 over the asking price, you're seeing some of those things where it's a bigger gap.
So how about this? So that let's say that 300,000 was the offer price, and after Tidewater, we have a value at 280, but we have an appraisal guarantee of $20,000. So, is it in my best interest as a VA specialist, in the veteran's best interest, to submit for a reconsideration of value to save that $20,000?
Absolutely. Whatever we can do
Yeah.
to keep money in the veteran's pocket or the buyer in general. I mean, some of this stuff doesn't always exactly apply to veterans. This is what we do as agents. You know, if we have a low appraisal, how can we fight it? On the FHA side, you can't do it unless you find something drastically wrong with the appraisal. And it does happen because a lot of your FHA appraisers are new. On the conventional side, same thing. But on the conventional, if there's something majorly wrong, you can just pay for a new one, right? And that's not always the case. But with the VA, Tidewater, ROV. So let's say the ROV doesn't work either. It doesn't match, and we're not able to make the difference, right? Maybe there is a bigger than the appraisal gap in this, and we can't make the difference. So what happens to that deal? Well, if the deal falls apart, right? The veteran's like, hey, look, I can't bring that much to the table, and the seller's refusing to reduce to any amount, then the deal dies. When that deal dies, that appraisal goes away. It's gone. It stays in that veteran's case file, but once the deal closes, that case file goes away. So another veteran can come in 2 weeks later, a week later, a month later, another veteran can come in, get another VA appraisal and say it appraises, then there's no problem. And they could use the exact same comps. That's the crazy thing. It just depends on the appraiser, right?
Yeah.
So
now, this isn't a VA appraisal thing. This is an appraiser thing.
Right.
Right. So it's not VA specific. It is an appraisal specific thing.
Right.
Okay. But the difference is a conventional appraisal, FHA appraisal, sticks to the property.
Right.
Right. The VA appraisal sticks with the veteran. So if the veteran walks from the property, that appraisal goes with them.
Right.
That's the key takeaway right there. Right. So what's the harm in accepting a VA offer again then?
None at all. It's actually to your benefit because you get a second chance to go at it again if need be.
Yeah.
And sometimes in this market, the difference of a week or two could be another closing nearby that's a comp that raises the price, you know?
Yeah. Or, I mean, again, it's who you work with is everything in this market, as we're displaying right here. These are things that many agents and lenders don't understand with the VA process because they're just not well versed in it or experienced. And that's okay if I'm working with a buyer's agent who has never had a VA transaction before. That's okay. I will hold their hand right through the entire process. But can you imagine a brand new buyer's agent who's had no VA experience? Couple that with a lender who's done one VA transaction in the last 5 years, and a listing agent who's had 2 VA transactions over the course of 3 years.
Right.
That's where the problem comes in, because it's a very egotistical industry on, as lenders, as real estate agents.
Yeah.
And it's very rare that you see somebody take a step back and humble themselves and listen to what's going on, unless you have somebody who actually bona fide legitimately knows what the hell they're talking about.
And that's where, like I said, I'm heavy on listings. That's generally most of my business is listing in the last few years. And it's a benefit to my client, my sellers, that I know and understand VA, because it gives them another option. Because you're going to get, right now in this market, you're going to get cash investor offers. You're going to get conventionals. You're going to get VAs, and you might get some FHAs at certain price points. But knowing that instead of just saying, hey, we're going to throw away FHA and VA and just worry about cash and conventional, well, those aren't always the greatest deals either. It depends on the program. What are they putting down? What are their other finances? We knowing that the veteran has been better vetted with residual income, so that we know that, and that helps with saying, hey, here's a third option. We have a veteran, and I think that's really the biggest benefit on the listing side, is to understand all of this so that you give your clients a better understanding of the VA process, and another option for offers instead of just being limited, especially now when we're seeing less offers come across. We're seeing less showings. The market is in a shift. My last listing a couple weeks ago, that when it went live, we had 4 showings the first day, none the rest of the weekend, 2 offers, 1 cash, 1 VA.
What's wrong with the property, Andy? Right?
Nothing.
What's crazy is a house will go on the market on Friday and it's still on the market on Monday. Instantly, everybody's like, what's wrong with the house?
Well, yeah, but see, that's what I explain. What I usually do is I try to get it on the market Thursday, if not Friday morning, give until Sunday for showings, right? And then make a decision either Sunday night or Monday morning. But, you've already got a bulk of your offers in the first day or two.
Yep.
And that's typically what's happening. But we've been seeing a downtrend for at least a year in the number of offers and the number of showings. So, I mean, it is what it is right now.
Yeah. I mean, so along the lines of the excluded demographic of the VA buyer, like if you properly educate your sellers to consider a VA offer, I mean, they're closing at the same rate as a conventional buyer.
Right. 80% plus.
As we just went over through this entire video, is that the VA appraisal process allows you to get your value back if the value isn't there. Plus, on top of that, they still have that appraisal guarantee up to a certain amount. I mean, it's all doable. Why wouldn't you want to consider this? I mean, they're an incredibly strong buyer with a financing program that allows you to get your value back in 2 different ways, allows you to get around most of the repairs that are required. Oh, by the way, January 1st of 2020, a lot of these repairs are part of the Blue Water Navy Vietnam Veterans Act.
Yeah.
So lenders can self-certify these repairs minus the paint, right? So a handrail, great example. All we need is a picture of a handrail put in, boom. We don't have to send the appraiser back out there. That saves the veteran $150, number one. It saves on time, right? Because it's going to take at least 24 to 48 hours for the appraiser to get out there to verify that, oh, yep, there's a handrail, when all we could have done is just taken a picture in the first place. That's how we roll, right? So that right there has helped save the closing timeline hundreds of times already for me personally, right?
No,
so
I agree with that. I mean, one of my longest transactions to close was a VA. I was on the listing side. The veteran buyer, who actually was going to be a security guard employee at the VA office nearby, or a VA hospital nearby, we had 3 things come up on the appraisal. The numbers were good. We appraised for the numbers just fine, no problem. We had 3 things come up on the inspection. The back door lock that I mentioned before, which was an easy fix. Okay, no problem. The attic door, the pull down attic door wasn't shutting all the way, and it really wasn't broken. It just needed to be pushed up further. And then the fence, he said there was a part of the fence that needed to be repaired, but would not explain exactly how to fix it, because we tried to fix it once with new boards, and he said, no, that's not it. And we're like, well, what are you talking about? And I'm like, why do we have to fix a fence? It doesn't meet the 3 S's, right? Safe, secure, and sanitary. Doesn't meet any of those. Why are we trying to fix this? The buyer said, hey, I'm going to tear it out anyways when I move in, because I don't want a chain link fence. And that's when things started to turn. We were able to, he submitted a letter saying, I'm going to tear it down. And then then we were able to get it waived by the SAR. But it took all this time to get all that stuff figured out, because communication between the lender, the agents, and the appraiser was really difficult, because not everybody knew all the same information. The buyer agent, it was her uncle, and this was her very first deal ever. Not first VA deal, first deal ever. So it was nothing but a learning process for the agent, the veteran, the loan officer, the underwriter, because I had to bring all of this information, right? And my client's getting frustrated, like, hey, what the heck? I'm making more payments on this thing. This was an investment property. I'm losing money. And I had to explain to them, I have to educate everybody in this process. And that's exactly what I did. But it got the deal closed.
There you go.
That's why the listing agent needs to know about VAs.
We're going on 37 minutes. Let's start wrapping this up here. But I think towards the end there, we started uncovering what our next topic could be. Qualification for the VA loan, residual versus DTI. What income can you use? You're getting ready to retire, but they haven't given you your retire letter yet. What income can you use? Because many lenders are going to tell you, no, we need something in writing.
Yeah. So, or you're in transition, you're getting out, you're not necessarily retiring, you're just getting out early, and you're having to go into an employment field, which, is pretty good right now.
There's quite a few. I've helped quite a few active duty members coming off active duty, going into this program, and I'm drawing a blank on the name, but essentially it allows you to remain on active duty for the last 8 to 6 months of your enlistment.
Wow.
And you essentially job hop. There's eight different fields in which it's like a tryout, like a 4-week tryout, in security, medical, this, that, the other. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but that you're getting paid as an active duty member, and you don't necessarily have a job yet. You're trying to find the field that you mesh with, right? Which I think is a great idea. I know this is an Air Force thing for sure, because I helped 2 Air Force guys do this last year. And I had an Army guy reach out earlier this year who's doing it towards the end of the year. So this is a thing. We'll talk over what's involved with that, because it's very important. I mean, I don't want veterans and active duty members to feel discouraged when they call 1-800 lender, and the 1-800 lender doesn't have an idea what the hell they're talking about, or they're falsely denied. So that's a good topic for our next video, I believe. So
sounds good to me, man.
Any final thoughts other than the VA appraisal process is freaking awesome? It should not be looked at in a negative light.
No, man. I can't wait to hear about your Taylor Foundation thing. We'll touch on that on the next one next week.
There's still time for the private meet and greet. If anybody's watching within a 5-hour drive of Grand Rapids, Corey Taylor, lead singer of Slipknot, is coming into Grand Rapids tomorrow, June 2nd, as part of the Knotfest Roadshow tour stop. Knotfest has Cypress Hill and Slipknot and a couple other bands. Corey has donated 2 VIP concert tickets, which we did the drawing last night. and he offered up 1 hour of his time to do a private meet and greet, small concert, take photos, talk, talk and meet with fans. It's going to be a great experience. If you want to if you want to be a part of it, head over to 92for22.org.
Yeah.
And under the events tab, you can register to join us tomorrow afternoon. So,
yeah, if I live closer to it, dude, I would definitely be there, man.
Dude, if we had any more than 2 weeks of lead time, I'd fly you up. But we had 2 weeks of lead time, and Corey did a Zoom call with a guy named it was the Zane Show. He's a pretty popular radio guy here in West Michigan, and he was saying that the Taylor Foundation, which they identified 92 for 22 as a beneficiary, the Taylor Foundation was formed May 14th. Wow. And we found out about it May 21st.
Wow. Wow.
So this is all just coming together last minute. So
yeah, they're getting things figured out. You're getting things figured out.
So it's all good. But other than that, man, have a great week.
You too, man.
Semper Fidelis.
Hoorah.
Stay out of trouble, my man. And as always, great conversations. Have a great week. Get after it.
All right.
Talk soon, man.